Welcome, poker players. Today we have a crazy hand played on Hustler Casino Live, primarily between Mariano and Ryan Feldman. Without further ado, let's jump into the pre-flop action.
Hoodie with the suited connector.
Okay. 1,000.
He 3-bets it.
3,000.
And Mariano with the cold 4-bet with the suited connector of his own. And aces for Ryan. Wow, what a spot. So Ryan stuck a lot tonight.
Mike X opens, Hoodie Allen 3-bets, and Mariano 4-bets, all in quick succession. There's a lot to talk about here, but we'll mainly focus on the actions that Ryan Feldman takes, as I think his perspective is the most interesting. Ryan wakes up with pocket aces, and this is what poker dreams are made of. Most players' natural intuition here would be to 5-bet and re-raise when we have the strongest hand by far possible pre-flop, and I would agree. Hustlers, like many games, is pretty loose and players love to call pre-flop. The biggest advantage of raising is that we're decreasing the likelihood of a multi-way post-flop pot, which increases the expected value of pocket aces. This hand mainly derives its value from flopping a strong overpair and stacking a worst pair. However, the more players involved, the more likely someone will draw to a better hand, like a straight or a flush. Ryan Feldman does decide to call, which I don't hate, since I think it has interesting merit for two reasons. The first is that by calling, Ryan still has 5 players behind him that could reopen the action. If Ryan knows that all 5 of these players collectively are extremely aggressive, he can lay a trap here expecting a re-raise enough of the time. To be clear, I think it has to be an extraordinary read to expect at least one player to reopen the action, because I think players tend to shy away from aggression in larger pots. You'll see overly aggressive 3-betting, less aggressive 4-betting, and even less aggressive 5-betting, and so on. Secondly, I like calling if players are tight and a cold 5-bet looks too strong. I think a call-only strategy can make sense given that it's really easy for regulars to view his line as extremely strong and fold everything but kings and aces themselves. But if there's one thing about Hustlers Casino Live you probably already know, it's that the players are not tight. Let's see how Ryan's trap works out.
He does just cold call the 4-bet though.
Whatever? That was the first time we've ever done that in my life.
Maybe wants to bring Mike and
Oh, it's okay.
Hoodie along.
But your name's Hoodie, so I don't want it to be named after me, though.
Oh boy. And Mike is going to do even better and put in the 5-bet.
5.
What an amazing scenario developing for Ryan.
10,500.
Hoodie gets out of the way. Mariano calls. And now, if Ryan puts in another raise, it's going to look so incredibly strong.
Bump it up. 25 large.
But he makes it 25K. What, 6-bet? Back raise 6-bet? That's the action I would trust to be the most meaningful.
Mike X decides to 5-bet, which I love, and Mariano decides to call, which is tragic. And now let's focus on Ryan's decision on this pre-flop adventure. Ryan decides to 6-bet back raise, which I think is the first time anyone has said that in the history of poker. I think it makes a lot of sense to spring the trap now, since now that the field has been thinned by Mike X's 5-bet, Ryan can't rely on anyone else to reopen the action and thus needs to build the pot himself. I also think it's likely that players are going to be sticky pre-flop as discussed previously, and Ryan needs to capitalize on that. Mariano decides to call Ryan's 6-bet. I think his calls are just too loose and weak for a couple of reasons. First, Mariano is playing out of position and is likely going to be procedurally checking out of position on most streets, forfeiting positional advantage. Secondly, he has a hand that performs well in deep stack-to-pot ratios as a suited connector, so he can win a huge pot whenever he makes a straight or a flush. But here, the stack-to-pot ratio is about 2.5. So even if Mariano does make a strong hand, he's not even going to win a large pot. Let's see a flop, dealer.
Ryan has some sort of premium. Oh boy. Wow. We could see a huge pot here. Bottom 2 for Mariano. Top set for Ryan, and it goes check, check.
The flop is pure action. Mariano starts off by checking procedurally, and I see merit to Ryan's check back on the flop. His reasoning, I think, is probably that he heavily blocks top pair, but I think this reasoning is slightly misguided. When we think about Mariano's calling range, assuming Ryan makes a very small continuation bet, there are lots of hands like straight draws and pocket pairs like jacks, and worse sets for Ryan to get value from. At the same time, there's not that much urgency to build a pot. Ryan can bet turn and river and has lots of ways to get all of the money in. Let's see a turn.
Top set for Ryan, and it goes check, check. What a flop. Mariano might think that Ryan has something like kings or queens here.
20.
20 large.
He's just going to call.
On the turn, Mariano checks and then Ryan decides to bet about 33% pot. I think this makes a lot of sense because unless we're building some unique and creative overbet strategy on the river, Ryan needs to bet twice to get all in with the virtual nuts after Mariano checks and removes a lot of flushes from their range. Let's see the final street.
He's going to call. 101,000 already in this pot.
Check.
Pretty bricky turn card, or river card rather. Top set in a 6-bet pot.
On the river, Ryan's value bet is approaching thin territory since his blockers to top pair are shrinking the part of Mariano's calling range that he beats. For example, it is 3 times less likely for Mariano to be holding top pair since Ryan blocks 2 aces. As discussed in a previous video, for Ryan's value bet to be better than checking, Mariano's calling range needs to be composed of more than 50% of hands that Ryan beats. If we do some rough combinatorics to sanity check this, if Mariano were to continue with a range of ace-king, pocket 10s, and pocket 9s, which Ryan's top set beats, as well as some trapped flushes like king-queen suited and jack-10 suited, there are 10 combos of worse hands and roughly 8 combos of better hands, aka flushes. We can discount many flushes since sometimes Mariano pro bets the turn with these or raises Ryan's turn bet, so we can see that a value bet is effective. I think Mariano has a tough decision here. When someone takes a weirdly aggressive pre-flop line, no matter whether you're a local old man coffee or a seasoned veteran, it screams pocket aces. Furthermore, even if Ryan were to bluff sometimes pre-flop, a lot of players like to bluff with suited aces like ace-2 suited and ace-5 suited, but both of these make 2 pair hands that Mariano loses to. I like folding here, but the decision can swing on a knife's edge depending on 2 things. 1, the likelihood that Ryan could be value betting ace-king without a flush, and 2nd, the propensity of Ryan for pulling off a big brain, big boss bluff. I haven't watched enough of Ryan's play to say for sure. Let's see how Mariano figures this one out.
This time it's Mariano who's in the very rough spot. He makes the call, and Ryan Feldman wins a $242,000 pot, the largest pot of the night.
Do you have an ace? Huh? Yeah, like queens, right?
6-bet pre-flop. Mariano comes along.
70.
If you made it this far, you might be interested in personal coaching. You can check out criticalpoker.com for more details, or contact me directly at info@criticalpoker.com or DM me at MNW on Discord. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep honing your poker skills.